Okay, now the next chapter that we're analyzing is how the cults misuse, misread, abuse the Bible. But like I said to you, they're not unique in this regard. I see some evangelicals and other Christians who use some of the same approach to Scripture that the cults did. So this is really a warning to all of us that we need to be more careful in how we view the Bible and how we develop a worldview and such like. Page 26. A worldview of the cults in contrast to that of Christianity. A worldview is how one views or interprets reality. It is a lens through which one looks at the world and comes to conclusions regarding its nature. Our five senses gather in the data of information from the outside world, and our mind interprets them. So this is the framework we develop. The worldview we hold has to do with how we interpret reality, again, I said. So a Mormon, for example, regards the universe as an eternally existing space-time continuum which is inhabited by eternally existing spiritual entities that eventually graduate to physical bodies and finally to godhood. It's how they view the world. Matter of fact, when I was in Tonga recently, I mentioned to you, I stopped by going by the Mormon temple and look and see some of the new things that have done there. And I ran into two Mormon missionaries on the side of the road, so I stopped and got their pictures because I'm developing a whole presentation on Tonga, and hopefully to have people help us support what we're doing there. And I'm doing some video that I'm going to include in PowerPoint. So I asked one of the guys, I said, "Where are you guys from?" And this one guy says, "I'm from heaven." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I started in heaven, and more recently, though, I'm from Utah." And of course, I know what he's talking about because he believes in eternally existent spirits, somewhat like the ancient Greeks, and that is born into a physical body. And our problems is the fact that in another world, prior to this world, people sinned. And that sin has brought in where we are and our need of salvation and so forth relates to the previous world when we were spirits.
So for them, sin started in the spirit world.
Yeah. And that's why they did have a doctrine on the fact that black individuals had committed grievous sins in the preceding world. That's why they are in fact born black. Now they dropped that old doctrine based on new revelation when the Civil Rights Act came in, and some of the issues that relating to that. But they're very flexible. They can measure up to whatever you need.
That's the ideal of progressive revelation.
Yeah, that's the progressive revelation. So their universe is inhabited by literally billions of these intelligences and gods who inhabit the universe and other worlds. This worldview is what one would call polytheism. Matter of fact, what you'll find though that Mormons are polytheists, but they're also something else. They would be called henotheists. You know what henotheism is? You know what polytheism is?
Many gods.
Many gods. Henotheism recognizes that there are other gods, but that you worship one particular God. That is, you recognize that there are other gods, but you are concentrating on your God.
What's that called?
Henotheism.
How do you spell the first part of that?
H-E-N-O-T-H-E-I-S-M. But it's from the Greek word hen, which means one. See? You know that. You know the
I
Greek.
almost guessed that a minute ago.
Yeah, but that's what it is. See? And poly is from the term polloi in Greek is many. You know Greek, you know a lot of language. Okay. Another, for example, one who follows the New Age movement believes that all reality is monistic. That is, all reality is made of basically the same stuff. Everything in creation emanates from God, like the rays of the sun. Such a world exists that holds that all as God is referred to as pantheism. Again, combination of two Greek words, pan, which means all. Not many like Paul, but pan means all. Theism. is God. All is God. So there are 7 basic worldviews that one could hold, and I referred to Ron Geisler's book here on that. Each one is unique, with the exception of pantheism and polytheism. No one can consistently believe in more than one worldview at the same time, since their central premises are mutually exclusive. So the cults have worldviews, how they view the world. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses are theistic. They believe the universe is created by a transcendent being. So that is a correct view to that point. In other words, they're correct to that level, whereas some views are otherwise. Now, I talk about some distinctions among them. About middle of the page, page 36, one thing the cults do hold in common, despite their varying worldviews, is their opposition to Orthodox Christianity. So they may differ with each other, but the enemy of my enemy is my, is my friend kind of thing. Is that right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Every major Christian doctrine has been either distorted or denied in one form or the other by the cults. Bottom of the page, page 26. The Christian worldview, as illustrated above, is theistic. We believe as Christians through the Old and Testament prophets, and then finally through, my goodness, there's something strange there. So, again, I told you this is in an earlier form, and I don't know what I meant there. But we do believe as theists that God has spoken through the prophets and then also through His Son. So that's what I'm getting at here. So how you view Jesus has a lot to do with whether you're a Christian or not, or whether you're a cultist. Then I have a lengthy section here on heresy and orthodoxy. The book I've used primarily here is from Harold O.J. Brown's book called Heresies. And if you don't own that book, you should have that book, because that is one of the more significant books that has been written over some time. Harold has put together.
Can you make that book again?
It's right here in the notes.
Oh, okay.
Harold J. Brown, Heresies, Heresy, and Orthodoxy and History of the Church. Excellent book. So I would encourage you to get that book and read it, because Joe Brown has really put together a good analysis of the whole problem of heresy. And he's correct in that heresy has a value. Heresy forces the church to define its doctrines more clearly. If you were to say, what is the value of heresy, it forces the church to define its doctrines more clearly. And then he discusses the various forms of heresy. The Gnosticism of the 2nd and 3rd century basically was a syncretism of Neoplatonism and Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and some touches of the. Now, here you're going to listen to me carefully. Hear me carefully, because I don't mean that Christianity is not true. I'm using the term in the proper literary sense of the term, not in a theological sense. That Gnosticism brought together the ideology of Neoplatonism and some of the religious trappings of Judaism and the philosophy, the ethic philosophy of Zoroastrianism, and the myths of Christianity. I'm using it in the literary sense of the term. That's how C.S. Lewis used it. That is, those stories that embody the thinking and the ideology and the worldview of Christianity. The stories, the virgin birth, the crucifixion, the resurrection. I'm not saying by that they didn't happen. I believe in the historicity of those things and theologically their value. But they nonetheless are within a literary framework.